There are moments in life that arrive unannounced, moments that challenge every belief, every assumption we hold about the people around us, and even about ourselves. One such moment came unexpectedly, a day that began with routine errands and ordinary conversations, but ended with an urgent call that changed everything. My mother had taken a turn for the worse. The words "critical condition" echoed through the phone like thunder, making my heart pound and my thoughts scatter in every direction. It was one of those rare situations where time seemed both unbearably slow and terrifyingly fast, compressing every decision, every thought, every feeling into a relentless race against the clock. As I prepared to leave, my mind was filled with questions, concerns, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. How had it come to this? Was I prepared? Was anyone really prepared for such moments? In the flurry of rushing to the hospital, arranging transportation, and making urgent calls to doctors and staff, a deeper realization began to take shape. In times of crisis, the people who matter most are revealed not by their words but by their actions. This was a lesson that hit harder than any lecture or book could have ever taught me. There were those I had always considered close, friends, acquaintances, even family members, whose absence was striking, almost jarring, in the stark light of the emergency. No calls, no messages of concern, no offers of help. It was a reminder that in the safe and predictable routines of daily life, relationships can feel sturdy, even unwavering. Yet they may be fragile when the true test comes. Observing this absence was painful, but it was also clarifying. Life has a way of forcing us to confront truths we often avoid, that not everyone who claims to care will act when the stakes are real, and that love without action is often little more than a comfortable illusion. As I navigated the hospital corridors, balancing appointments, treatments, and constant check-ins with doctors, I found myself reflecting deeply on what it truly means to prioritize family. It is not merely about showing up at birthdays or anniversaries, or even offering help when it is convenient. It is about stepping forward when every other force seems to be pulling in the opposite direction. It is about making sacrifices, even small ones, to ensure that those we love feel supported, protected, and cherished when they are most vulnerable. In these critical moments, the ordinary gestures of care transform into acts of courage, and the ordinary bonds of kinship are tested in ways that reveal their true depth. This understanding brought with it both pain and empowerment. Pain, because it meant confronting the reality that some people would not rise to the occasion regardless of how much history or comfort connected us. Empowerment, because it reminded me that the responsibility to act does not belong to others. It belongs to me, to anyone willing to step forward with compassion and courage. There is a certain clarity in moments like these. They strip away distractions, excuses, and the comfortable illusions we hold about loyalty, revealing who truly prioritizes family and who does not. Through this experience, I began to observe more than just absence. I noticed the small, seemingly insignificant acts that carried profound meaning. A timely message, a quick call, even a brief gesture of concern, all became shining examples of commitment and presence. Conversely, the lack of these gestures became lessons in discernment, helping to refine understanding of who truly values family and who values convenience or self-interest over connection. In times of crisis, the world becomes sharply focused, and every action or inaction speaks volumes. It was during this period that I understood another critical aspect of prioritizing family. It requires balance between emotional involvement and strategic action. Panic and despair are natural reactions when a loved one is in danger, but they are not always productive. To genuinely prioritize family, one must cultivate clarity amidst chaos, focusing on what can be done rather than being consumed by what cannot. This means knowing whom to contact, how to communicate efficiently, and when to step back to allow professionals to perform their work. Emotional presence is vital, but effective action often saves more than worry alone. This duality of care, both heartfelt and practical, is what truly defines the act of prioritizing family in times of crisis. During those harrowing days, I also learned that prioritizing family often requires stepping beyond personal comfort. There is a natural tendency to cling to routines, to protect oneself from discomfort or disruption. Yet, in moments of crisis, these personal boundaries must be temporarily adjusted to meet the needs of those we love. This does not mean losing oneself. Rather, it means exercising the courage to extend oneself fully, even when it is inconvenient or exhausting. I realize that these sacrifices, while difficult, are investments in the trust, respect, and emotional well-being of those we hold dear. Another lesson emerged as I navigated the logistical and emotional complexities of my mother's critical condition, the importance of cultivating patience and empathy. Crisis situations often test not only physical endurance but also emotional resilience. Doctors deliver news that can shift by the hour, procedures may fail, and complications arise unpredictably. In such scenarios, the ability to remain composed, to listen, to empathize, and to provide support, not only to the patient, but also to oneself, is invaluable. Prioritizing family is as much about sustaining emotional stability as it is about offering practical help. The two are inseparable, creating a foundation upon which effective care and meaningful support are built. Amid these challenges, I also reflected on the nature of interdependence. We often assume that family will always step up, that the bonds of blood are sufficient to guarantee support. Yet, reality frequently teaches a different lesson. Interdependence is not automatic. It is nurtured through consistent care, attention, and presence in both ordinary and extraordinary circumstances. When one member falters or is absent, the system may strain, revealing both weaknesses and hidden strengths. By stepping forward when others do not, I recognize that prioritizing family sometimes means assuming responsibility that others are unwilling or unable to take on. It is both a burden and a privilege, one that tests character and compassion simultaneously. Throughout this ordeal, I found that prioritizing family also involves fostering emotional intelligence. It is not enough to act, one must act with awareness, sensitivity, and discernment. Understanding how a loved one responds to stress, knowing what brings comfort, and anticipating needs before they are explicitly stated are all part of this skill. Emotional intelligence transforms care from mere obligation into meaningful support. It allows actions to resonate more deeply, providing comfort that is both tangible and heartfelt. In this way, prioritizing family is as much about understanding emotions as it is about managing logistics or finances. The days spent in hospital corridors were long and often exhausting, but they were also instructive. They revealed the true meaning of responsibility, the essence of compassion, and the quiet power of presence. Even small acts, holding a hand, offering words of reassurance, or simply remaining attentive, became profound demonstrations of love. They were reminders that in moments of crisis, time is fleeting and every action carries weight far beyond its apparent significance. These lessons were etched into memory, shaping the way I approach not only my mother's care but also my understanding of relationships more broadly. Through all this, I came to understand that prioritizing family is not merely about immediate actions during a crisis. It is about cultivating relationships that endure before, during, and after emergencies. It is about investing in trust, nurturing bonds, and recognizing that crises are inevitable, but preparation and genuine connection can mitigate their impact. Prioritizing family is therefore both a proactive and reactive process, a continuous commitment that manifests most vividly when life challenges us in ways we cannot predict. Perhaps the most powerful realization was this: prioritizing family ultimately strengthens the individual as much as it supports the loved one. In navigating my mother's critical condition, I discovered reservoirs of patience, courage, and problem-solving ability I had not known I possessed. I learned to manage fear, uncertainty, and emotional turbulence with resilience and grace. I honed skills of communication, organization, and empathy. In stepping fully into responsibility for someone else's well-being, I became stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. The act of prioritizing family was, paradoxically, an act of self-discovery and growth. By the end of the ordeal, when the immediate crisis had passed and routines began to normalize, the lessons remained vivid. The experience had clarified who truly valued family and who would act only when convenient. It had highlighted the importance of emotional intelligence, practical skill, and resilience in moments of urgent need. It had shown that prioritizing family is an ongoing choice, one that requires awareness, dedication, and courage, not only when everything is calm, but especially when everything is uncertain. In retrospect, the experience offered a roadmap for future challenges. It taught me that true family support is measured not by intentions, but by actions. It emphasized that readiness, compassion, and the willingness to step beyond personal comfort are indispensable. Most importantly, it revealed that while we cannot control the behavior of others, we can control our response, and in doing so, we can ensure that our love, our care, and our responsibility manifest in ways that genuinely make a difference. Life is full of unexpected crises, and each one carries the potential to teach us about resilience, empathy, and the power of human connection. Prioritizing family is not always easy, nor is it always convenient, but it is one of the most meaningful and transformative choices a person can make. By embracing responsibility, nurturing bonds, and acting with compassion and clarity, we not only provide support when it is needed most, but also cultivate the strength, wisdom, and character that will sustain us through all of life's challenges. In the end, the lesson is simple yet profound. In times of crisis, love is measured by presence, courage is measured by action, and family is defined not by proximity or blood alone, but by the willingness to step forward when it matters most. The experience of prioritizing family transforms pain into purpose, absence into clarity, and uncertainty into understanding. It teaches that in caring deeply, we discover not only the strength of our loved ones, but the strength within ourselves. A lesson that resonates far beyond the walls of any hospital, into every facet of life where love, loyalty, and responsibility intersect. Money is a tool. It is neither inherently good nor inherently bad, yet it often becomes the silent measure of relationships, loyalty, and respect. During the same period when my mother's health became critical, I faced an unexpected challenge that would teach me one of life's most important lessons: the significance of financial boundaries and self-respect. In moments of stress, when emotions are raw and decisions must be made quickly, money can become entangled with expectations, obligations, and the subtle dynamics of power. Navigating these waters requires not only practical knowledge, but also emotional clarity and self-awareness. It started with an unexpected demand, a request for a large sum of money that, in context, felt out of alignment with the situation at hand. In that instant, my mind raced. How could I respond appropriately? What were my obligations, and what were boundaries that needed to be upheld? The situation revealed a critical truth: the value of money is not in its amount, but in how it intersects with respect, fairness, and principle. Responding wisely to financial demands requires a combination of discernment, assertiveness, and calmness, a skill that often develops only through experience and reflection. This challenge prompted an inner dialogue about self-respect. Money, after all, is a finite resource, and using it indiscriminately or under pressure can compromise one's sense of agency. It became clear that financial boundaries are a form of self-protection. They define what is acceptable and what is not, ensuring that support is given intentionally rather than extracted under duress. In learning to assert these boundaries, I discovered that self-respect and financial prudence are deeply intertwined. Protecting one's resources is not selfish. It is an act of maintaining personal integrity, dignity, and autonomy. The process of navigating this unexpected financial situation also taught me about the psychology of expectation. Often, people assume entitlement, believing that their needs or desires automatically take precedence over another's limits. Yet boundaries exist precisely to prevent exploitation and to maintain balance in relationships. By calmly but firmly communicating limits, I was able to honor both the immediate practical realities and the broader principle that support should be rooted in mutual respect and consent. This moment underscored a powerful educational insight. Money, when tied to respect and boundaries, becomes a tool for clarity rather than conflict. Beyond the practical considerations, this experience highlighted the importance of emotional detachment when dealing with financial pressures. When money becomes a weapon, a lever, or a demand, it is easy to react emotionally, defensively, angrily, or impulsively. Yet these reactions often escalate tension rather than resolving it. Maintaining composure, evaluating the situation rationally, and responding in alignment with personal values transforms a potentially stressful encounter into an opportunity for empowerment and learning. Financial boundaries are not just about protecting assets, they are about exercising emotional intelligence, discernment, and self-confidence. Another dimension of this lesson involved anticipating challenges and creating proactive safeguards. Just as one prepares for medical emergencies or life disruptions, it is wise to prepare for situations where money might be requested under pressure. This includes having clear policies about lending, gifting, or spending, understanding one's financial limits, and communicating expectations openly before crises arise. By doing so, one minimizes conflict and maintains the ability to act with integrity even under pressure. The principle here is straightforward. Clear boundaries prevent confusion, resentment, and compromise of self-respect. This moment also illuminated the subtle intersection of financial responsibility and emotional well-being. Being asked for a significant amount of money in a high-stress situation can provoke feelings of guilt, obligation, and fear of judgment. Learning to navigate these feelings is part of cultivating resilience and self-respect. Emotional maturity allows one to recognize that saying no or negotiating limits is not a betrayal. It is a responsible, principled choice that protects both one's resources and emotional stability. In this way, financial boundaries serve not only practical purposes but also psychological ones, reinforcing confidence and self-assurance. Through this experience, I also recognize the broader societal lesson about the role of money in human relationships. Money is often seen as a measure of generosity, love, or loyalty. Yet true generosity is not measured by how much one gives under pressure, but by how thoughtfully, consciously, and willingly support is offered. Respecting boundaries ensures that financial transactions remain acts of choice, not coercion. By internalizing this principle, I began to see financial interactions not as sources of conflict, but as opportunities to practice clarity, fairness, and personal integrity. Moreover, setting financial boundaries taught me about long-term thinking. It is easy to respond impulsively to immediate requests, especially when emotions run high. Yet, every financial decision has consequences, both practical and relational. By pausing, evaluating the situation, and considering the broader implications, I learned to act in ways that preserve not only immediate peace, but also long-term trust and stability. Financial prudence, then, is inseparable from emotional intelligence and strategic thinking. This experience also reinforced a fundamental truth: self-respect is inseparable from financial awareness. Respecting oneself involves recognizing one's worth, understanding one's limits, and refusing to allow others to impose unrealistic expectations. Financial boundaries are an outward expression of inner strength, a demonstration that one values both resources and personal dignity. They communicate that support must be given thoughtfully, not demanded arbitrarily, and that relationships are healthiest when built on mutual respect rather than coercion. Over time, I realized that these lessons extend far beyond the immediate scenario. They apply to every aspect of life where expectations, resources, and responsibilities intersect. Whether dealing with family, friends, or professional relationships, the ability to define limits, communicate them clearly, and enforce them with grace is indispensable. Financial boundaries become a metaphor for all forms of boundary setting: emotional, social, and personal, reinforcing the importance of self-respect in every context. Perhaps the most profound takeaway was understanding the connection between boundaries and empowerment. By defining limits clearly, I reclaimed agency in a situation that initially felt overwhelming. I learned that power lies not in compliance or acquiescence, but in thoughtful, principled action. Each decision to uphold a boundary, even in the face of pressure, strengthened confidence and reinforced the ability to navigate future challenges with clarity and integrity. Ultimately, this experience taught me that prioritizing family and personal integrity are not mutually exclusive. One can act with compassion, provide support, and maintain love for loved ones while simultaneously asserting limits that protect personal resources and dignity. The intersection of generosity and self-respect is delicate but achievable, requiring awareness, courage, and a commitment to principles over convenience. In reflection, the lesson of financial boundaries is profound. It is about more than money. It is about teaching oneself and others that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned and reciprocated. It is about cultivating discernment, clarity, and emotional resilience. It is about recognizing the subtle ways in which financial dynamics can influence relationships and consciously choosing to navigate them with integrity. Most importantly, it is about understanding that asserting boundaries is not a sign of selfishness. It is a declaration of self-worth, a commitment to honor oneself, and an essential component of loving and supporting others effectively. By embracing this principle, I transformed a potentially stressful and emotionally charged situation into a source of personal growth and empowerment. I learned to act with intentionality, to protect both resources and self-respect, and to recognize the subtle interplay between money, emotion, and relationship dynamics. The experience became a cornerstone of understanding how to balance generosity with prudence, compassion with principle, and care for others with respect for oneself. In life, financial boundaries are not merely optional, they are essential. They provide structure, clarity, and security, ensuring that relationships remain healthy, interactions remain principled, and personal dignity remains intact. Through this experience, I came to see that true strength is not measured by the ability to give endlessly, but by the ability to give wisely, deliberately, and with self-respect intact. Financial boundaries, when applied thoughtfully, are an act of empowerment, education, and integrity, offering lessons that extend far beyond money into every facet of life where values, expectations, and responsibilities intersect. Money is more than a currency, it is a measure of trust, respect, and personal values. Many people view financial transactions simply as exchanges of resources, but in reality, money often carries emotional weight, moral expectations, and sometimes subtle tests of character. During a period of intense personal stress, I encountered a situation that brought this truth into sharp focus. It wasn't a situation that could be anticipated or easily managed. It arose in a moment when emotions were heightened and judgment could easily be clouded. Through it, I learned one of life's most important lessons, the need to establish financial boundaries and protect one's self-respect. The incident began unexpectedly, as crises often do. While caring for a loved one in critical condition, a financial demand arrived, substantial enough to challenge both my resources and my sense of fairness. The request carried an unspoken expectation that it would be met without question, without hesitation, and without consideration of circumstances. In that instant, the situation became not only a matter of money, but a profound test of values, priorities, and self-awareness. I realized that financial demands are rarely neutral. They can reflect deeper dynamics of control, entitlement, or expectation. Responding wisely, therefore, requires clarity, calmness, and the courage to assert one's principles. As I processed the request, I confronted an essential truth: money must never come at the cost of self-respect. Financial boundaries are a reflection of personal dignity. They communicate to ourselves and to others that support is offered intentionally, not extracted under pressure. It became clear that failing to enforce these boundaries could have consequences far beyond the immediate financial impact. It could erode confidence, blur principles, and send a message that one's resources, and by extension, one's values, are negotiable under duress. Establishing clear limits is not merely prudent, it is a form of self-preservation and empowerment. The first step in navigating this challenge was reflection. I had to assess the situation calmly and objectively, separating emotions from the facts. Financial requests in stressful contexts can trigger a range of powerful emotions: guilt, fear, obligation, or anger. Each of these reactions, if unchecked, can lead to decisions that compromise integrity or create resentment. I reminded myself that self-respect is rooted not in reaction but in reflection. By pausing to consider what was reasonable, what was ethical, and what was aligned with my principles, I reclaimed control over a situation that could have easily felt overwhelming. Through this process, I also recognized a broader lesson about fairness and reciprocity. Support, whether emotional or financial, is meaningful only when it is given willingly and within reasonable expectations. When a request exceeds what is fair or imposes unfairly on one's resources, honoring that request can actually undermine trust and integrity rather than strengthening it. True generosity is never coerced. It is offered from a place of choice, awareness, and responsibility. Financial boundaries, therefore, are not about being stingy or selfish. They are about ensuring that support remains healthy, deliberate, and sustainable. In asserting these boundaries, I also discovered the value of clear communication. Ambiguity or hesitation can lead to misunderstandings or further pressure. It became essential to articulate limits respectfully, directly, and confidently. By stating what I could and could not provide, I reinforced my personal agency while maintaining respect for the other party. This balance between firmness and empathy is crucial. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out, but guidelines to navigate expectations responsibly. The ability to communicate limits effectively is a skill that protects both relationships and personal well-being. Another critical insight was understanding the difference between obligation and choice. Many people respond to financial pressure out of a sense of duty or fear of judgment. While these feelings are natural, they can compromise self-respect if they lead to decisions that violate personal principles. I learned that asserting boundaries is not about denying support. It is about choosing when, how, and under what circumstances to offer it. Empowerment comes from understanding that the choice to help is most meaningful when it is free, conscious, and aligned with one's values. The situation also highlighted the interplay between financial responsibility and emotional resilience. Being asked for a substantial sum of money during a crisis can provoke stress, anxiety, and even doubt about one's relationships. Maintaining composure and acting with clarity required emotional discipline. I realized that financial boundaries serve as both a practical and psychological safeguard. They help manage resources while simultaneously reinforcing confidence, clarity, and inner strength. Learning to hold these boundaries firmly, yet gracefully, became an essential life skill. Beyond the immediate circumstances, this experience underscored the importance of anticipating challenges and preparing for them in advance. Financial boundaries are most effective when they are clear, consistent, and established before emergencies arise. This includes understanding one's limits, having a plan for how to respond to requests, and ensuring that communication about resources is transparent. Proactive boundaries reduce stress, prevent conflict, and allow for more meaningful generosity, even in high-pressure situations. Preparation is empowerment. It transforms reactive decisions into deliberate, principled action. I also came to appreciate the subtle but profound relationship between money and respect. Requests for financial support often carry an implicit assumption of entitlement, and navigating them requires discernment. Upholding boundaries does not diminish care or commitment. On the contrary, it reinforces the integrity of the relationship. It sends a message that support is given thoughtfully, intentionally, and with mutual respect rather than extracted under pressure or expectation. This distinction is crucial. Respect cannot be demanded. It must be maintained through conscious, principled action. Over time, the incident became a lesson in long-term thinking. Every financial decision has consequences that extend beyond the immediate moment. By evaluating requests through the lens of principle, sustainability, and fairness, I was able to act in ways that preserved both relationships and personal integrity. This approach prevented short-term stress from escalating into long-term regret. Financial boundaries are therefore not only protective, they are a form of foresight and strategic thinking. They allow us to respond with wisdom, even in emotionally charged situations. Another essential realization was that setting financial boundaries is inherently tied to self-worth. Money is a reflection of one's effort, responsibility, and agency. Allowing unreasonable demands to override personal limits risks undermining the recognition of one's own value. By asserting boundaries, I affirmed that my resources, time, and energy are valuable, deserving of respect. This is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect and empowerment. Maintaining boundaries cultivates confidence, strengthens resilience, and nurtures a sense of agency in all areas of life. The experience also offered insight into the broader social and emotional dynamics of money. Financial interactions are rarely about money alone. They are entwined with trust, expectation, and human behavior. By approaching financial requests with clarity and principle, I learned to distinguish between genuine need and unreasonable expectation. This discernment is crucial for maintaining both emotional health and relational integrity. Financial boundaries, in this sense, are a tool for understanding human behavior, protecting personal resources, and fostering responsible, mutually respectful interactions. Perhaps the most profound takeaway was recognizing that boundaries are empowering rather than limiting. They allow us to act intentionally, to provide support on our own terms, and to maintain integrity under pressure. The choice to uphold limits is a declaration of self-respect, a reinforcement of personal values, and a demonstration of emotional intelligence. It ensures that generosity and support are meaningful rather than transactional, and that personal dignity is never compromised. In reflecting on the experience, I realize that the lessons extend far beyond the immediate financial context. They apply to all areas of life where expectations, obligations, and resources intersect. Financial boundaries are a metaphor for all forms of self-respect, emotional, relational, and personal. By learning to assert limits, communicate clearly, and act with principle, we develop the skills necessary to navigate complex human dynamics with integrity and confidence. Ultimately, the lesson is clear. Financial boundaries are essential for personal integrity, emotional well-being, and meaningful relationships. They allow us to provide support without compromising our values, to maintain self-respect under pressure, and to approach every situation with clarity and confidence. Through this experience, I learned that self-respect is inseparable from financial awareness, and that setting boundaries is a form of empowerment, education, and personal growth. By embracing this principle, I transformed a potentially stressful and emotionally charged situation into an opportunity for learning and strength. I learned to navigate pressure with composure, to assert limits with confidence, and to maintain integrity in the face of expectation. Financial boundaries, when applied thoughtfully, protect both resources and dignity, ensuring that generosity remains principled, support remains meaningful, and self-respect remains intact. In the end, the incident reinforced a universal truth. The way we manage money, especially under pressure, reflects not only our practical skills, but also our character. By establishing clear financial boundaries, we protect our resources, uphold our values, and cultivate the confidence necessary to navigate life's challenges with grace. Financial boundaries are not obstacles. They are tools for empowerment, resilience, and the cultivation of self-respect in every aspect of life, where decisions, expectations, and human relationships intersect. Life has a way of testing us in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes the challenges that shape us the most are not external dangers or obstacles, but the absence of support when it is most needed. During a critical period in my life, I faced one of these tests, a situation in which the people I expected to stand by me were absent. The experience was painful, yet it became one of the most profound lessons I have ever learned about resilience, self-reliance, and the inner strength that emerges when neglect and disappointment are confronted with courage. At first, the absence felt like a personal failure, as though the lack of support reflected a flaw in my judgment or worth. When a loved one is in crisis, there is an instinctive desire to reach out to others for help, guidance, and comfort. When that help does not arrive, the feeling of isolation can be overwhelming. There is a moment of disbelief, followed by frustration, and often a deep sadness as one comes to terms with the reality that not everyone will rise to the occasion, regardless of history, connection, or expectation. It was in that moment of solitude that I realized the first truth about resilience. It is cultivated, not given. Resilience does not emerge from the comfort of external support, but from the willingness to confront difficulty directly, even when the world seems indifferent. I began to understand that the absence of others is not necessarily a reflection of my worth, but a call to discover the strength that already exists within me. In that silence, I had the opportunity to turn despair into determination, frustration into focus, and vulnerability into resourcefulness. Resilience, I learned, begins with acceptance. Accepting the reality of neglect does not mean condoning it or ignoring its impact. Rather, it means acknowledging the situation without allowing it to define one's response. By accepting that support may not be forthcoming, I was able to shift my energy from longing and disappointment toward action and problem-solving. Acceptance creates clarity. It allows one to see the situation as it is, without the distortions of expectation or resentment. This clarity became the foundation upon which resilience could be built. From acceptance emerged the necessity of self-reliance. When others are absent, the responsibility for action rests squarely on one's own shoulders. This realization is both daunting and empowering. It is daunting because it places the full weight of decision-making, care, and problem-solving upon an individual. Yet it is empowering because it reveals a hidden capacity for strength, ingenuity, and endurance that might otherwise remain untapped. In navigating my loved one's critical condition, I discovered the practical and emotional capabilities that arise when one refuses to wait for assistance that may never come. Self-reliance became a lifeline, not just for the immediate crisis, but as a principle for facing future challenges. The experience also illuminated the importance of emotional regulation. Crisis situations are inherently stressful, but when compounded by neglect, the emotional stakes rise dramatically. It is easy to fall into patterns of panic, anger, or despair. I learned that resilience requires deliberate management of these emotions, not suppression, but conscious direction. By acknowledging fear and sadness while choosing to act with clarity and purpose, I maintained focus, preserved energy, and protected my capacity to respond effectively. Emotional regulation is not a luxury. It is a survival tool and a cornerstone of true resilience. As I navigated these challenges, I became acutely aware of the distinction between dependence and interdependence. Human beings are social creatures and connection is essential. Yet, true resilience is rooted in the ability to function independently when necessary, while still valuing healthy relationships. The absence of support highlighted the difference between reliance on others and reliance on oneself. By stepping fully into responsibility, I not only met immediate needs, but also strengthened my capacity for future challenges, building confidence in my own abilities rather than tethering them to the presence of others. Resilience, I discovered, is also about perspective. Neglect and disappointment can easily be perceived as failures, betrayals, or injustices. Yet when viewed through the lens of learning and growth, these experiences become opportunities for self-discovery. I began to see that every obstacle, every moment of abandonment, carried with it a lesson about priorities, boundaries, and the human condition. The challenge was not merely surviving the situation, but interpreting it in a way that fostered wisdom, empathy, and self-awareness. Perspective transforms hardship from a weight into a teacher. Another vital aspect of resilience is the cultivation of problem-solving skills under pressure. When support is absent, solutions must be generated internally. I found myself balancing medical decisions, logistical challenges, and emotional care, often simultaneously. Each choice, each action, reinforced my belief in my capacity to navigate complexity. Resilience is not passive endurance, it is active engagement. It is the ability to assess, adapt, and act effectively, even when circumstances feel overwhelming. Through these experiences, I developed a practical framework for decision-making that combined critical thinking, emotional awareness, and creativity. The experience also reinforced the importance of patience and perseverance. Crisis situations rarely resolve instantly, and neglect can exacerbate the feeling of urgency. Resilience is sustained not through brief bursts of effort, but through steady commitment, repeated action, and the willingness to continue even when progress is slow or invisible. By cultivating patience, I maintained focus, avoided burnout, and ensured that each step, no matter how small, contributed to a broader goal. Perseverance in this context became a defining feature of strength. An equally critical lesson was the recognition of personal boundaries. While resilience requires stepping into responsibility, it also necessitates protecting one's well-being. Physical, emotional, and mental limits must be acknowledged and respected. I learned to balance the demands of care with the need for rest, reflection, and recovery. True resilience is not blind endurance, it is a measured, sustainable engagement that preserves energy while meeting essential responsibilities. Boundaries are the framework that allows strength to persist over time rather than deplete under pressure. The experience also taught me to value small victories. When facing neglect and overwhelming responsibility, it is easy to feel that efforts are insufficient. I learned to acknowledge progress, however incremental, and to celebrate the ways in which action created tangible impact. This reinforcement fueled motivation, strengthened confidence, and cultivated a mindset of resilience. Recognizing small successes helps maintain perspective and encourages continued effort, even when circumstances remain challenging. Through this journey, I also discovered the profound role of reflection in building resilience. Each day, each decision, each emotional response became a point of learning. I reflected on what strategies worked, what could have been improved, and what insights could be applied in the future. Reflection transforms experience into knowledge. Resilience is strengthened not only by enduring difficulty but by actively analyzing, understanding, and integrating the lessons it offers. Resilience in the face of neglect is ultimately about empowerment. It is about recognizing that while we cannot control the actions or absence of others, we can control our response. By taking responsibility, managing emotions, setting boundaries, and acting deliberately, we reclaim agency in situations that might otherwise feel disempowering. This empowerment is both practical and psychological. It provides the tools to navigate immediate challenges and the confidence to face future uncertainties. The experience also revealed the importance of cultivating internal support systems. In the absence of external help, internal resources, strength of character, problem-solving skills, emotional regulation, and self-belief become essential. I realized that investing in these internal capacities before crises arise pays dividends when challenges inevitably occur. Resilience is not solely reactive, it is proactive. It is the ongoing cultivation of skills, mindset, and emotional strength that enables us to thrive under pressure. Through this journey, I also came to understand that neglect, while painful, can illuminate priorities and clarify relationships. The absence of support exposes where true commitment lies, and it encourages discernment in investing energy and trust. Resilience is strengthened by these insights, as it equips one to navigate future relationships with greater wisdom, to distinguish genuine support from superficial promises, and to focus attention on connections that are reciprocal, meaningful, and sustaining. In reflection, resilience is a multidimensional skill. It combines emotional intelligence, practical problem-solving, patience, perseverance, self-reliance, and reflection. It is built in the crucible of adversity and refined by the absence of external support. Through the experience of navigating neglect during a critical period, I discovered not only the capacity to survive, but also the ability to thrive, to learn, and to grow. Each challenge became a stepping stone toward a stronger, wiser, and more self-aware version of myself. Ultimately, the lesson is clear. Resilience is not merely enduring hardship, it is learning from it, acting through it, and emerging stronger on the other side. The absence of support, while painful, becomes a teacher. It forces introspection, demands self-reliance, and cultivates emotional strength. By embracing these challenges, one develops a robust inner foundation that is unshakable even when the world fails to provide comfort. True resilience is the capacity to maintain integrity, purpose, and growth, regardless of the presence or absence of others. In the end, resilience in the face of neglect is a transformative journey. It reveals the strength that exists within, the wisdom gained through adversity, and the power of self-reliance and perseverance. It teaches that while external support is valuable, the most enduring form of strength comes from within. By cultivating resilience, we prepare ourselves not only to navigate life's immediate crises, but also to face future challenges with confidence, clarity, and unwavering self-belief. Life often tests us in ways that seem unfair, unexpected, and overwhelming. Adversity is rarely convenient, and it rarely arrives in ways we anticipate. Yet within these moments of hardship lies a profound opportunity, the chance to learn, to grow, and to transform pain into education. During a particularly difficult chapter in my life, I encountered challenges that seemed insurmountable at first. Critical health crises, emotional neglect, and unreasonable demands all collided simultaneously, creating a landscape that felt chaotic and isolating. It was in this environment, however, that I discovered one of the most transformative lessons of my life, that adversity itself can become the most powerful teacher. At first, the experience felt crushing. When a loved one is critically ill, the natural response is panic, worry, and fear. When those we hope will support us are absent, the weight of responsibility and emotion intensifies. And when expectations clash with reality, the strain can feel unbearable. In that moment, it is easy to view challenges as purely obstacles, unfair tests of endurance, or signs that the world is against us. Yet, the shift occurs when we choose to see adversity not as a punishment, but as an opportunity for growth. This choice requires awareness, courage, and a willingness to reflect deeply on what each experience is teaching us. The first lesson I learned in transforming adversity into education was the importance of observation. Every challenge, every act of neglect, every unreasonable expectation carries information. It reveals patterns of human behavior, clarifies who can be relied upon, and exposes the subtle dynamics of relationships. By paying close attention to these patterns, I began to extract meaning from situations that initially seemed meaningless. The absence of support, for example, revealed not only the limitations of others, but also the strength that existed within me. Observing carefully allows adversity to be reframed from a source of frustration into a source of insight. Another essential lesson was the role of self-reflection. Hardship has a way of magnifying both strengths and weaknesses. In navigating crises, I was forced to examine my own responses, how I managed stress, how I made decisions under pressure, and how I maintained my emotional balance. Reflection transforms experience into knowledge. By analyzing each decision, each reaction, and each outcome, I could identify areas of growth, patterns of resilience, and opportunities to improve. Without reflection, adversity remains simply a burden. With reflection, it becomes a classroom. Adversity also teaches the importance of perspective. When caught in the intensity of a crisis, it is easy to feel trapped in a single narrative, one of injustice, loss, or helplessness. However, by stepping back and examining the broader context, we can begin to see lessons that might otherwise be obscured by emotion. Each obstacle can highlight values, priorities, and principles that matter most. In my own experience, the challenges I faced revealed the importance of integrity, self-respect, and the power of deliberate action. Perspective transforms immediate suffering into long-term insight. One of the most profound ways adversity educates is by strengthening resilience. Challenges demand creative problem-solving, patience, and perseverance. They force us to confront fears, take decisive action, and cultivate emotional regulation. Through these experiences, I discovered capabilities I had not known I possessed. Adversity creates situations that cannot be solved by routine or avoidance. It requires innovation, courage, and adaptability. Each challenge faced and overcome becomes a tangible demonstration of inner strength, teaching lessons that cannot be learned through comfort or ease. Another critical insight I gained was the value of discernment. Not every situation requires the same response, and not every person or circumstance deserves the same level of investment. Hardship clarifies priorities. Who and what deserve attention, energy, and resources, and who or what do not. By learning to allocate effort wisely, I transformed overwhelming challenges into manageable tasks and identified areas where action would yield meaningful results. Adversity sharpens judgment and refines decision-making, turning complex problems into lessons in strategy and critical thinking. Adversity also teaches patience and the importance of timing. Crises do not resolve instantly, and solutions often unfold gradually. Learning to navigate this process, to act decisively yet with awareness of timing, is a skill cultivated only through experience. In my own journey, patience became a teacher in its own right. It reinforced the understanding that rushing, panicking, or forcing outcomes rarely leads to success. Education through adversity includes recognizing when to act, when to wait, and how to sustain effort over time. Emotional intelligence is another domain in which adversity provides invaluable lessons. Stressful situations reveal the depth of one's empathy, the capacity for compassion, and the ability to regulate emotional responses. In caring for a critically ill loved one while managing external pressures, I learned to navigate not only my own emotions, but also those of others involved. Adversity, when approached with reflection, teaches us how to respond with awareness, sensitivity, and wisdom, transforming emotional challenges into opportunities for personal growth. Perhaps the most empowering lesson of all is the understanding that adversity is not permanent, but the knowledge gained from it is. Challenges may test us, push us, and sometimes overwhelm us, yet each trial carries with it a gift, insight, skill, perspective, or awareness that can be applied in future circumstances. By viewing hardship through this lens, I began to see that the difficulties themselves were temporary, but the education they provided was enduring. This shift in mindset transforms the way challenges are experienced, making them not just survivable, but deeply instructive. Adversity also encourages creativity and flexibility. When standard approaches fail, new solutions must be discovered. In my own experience, this meant improvising, adapting, and thinking beyond conventional limits. These moments of innovation became critical lessons in problem-solving, showing that even when the environment is difficult, resourcefulness can lead to solutions. The ability to adapt and learn from challenges is one of the most enduring forms of education adversity can offer. In reflecting on these experiences, I also recognize the importance of documenting lessons and sharing them with others. Adversity becomes even more valuable when the knowledge gained is transferred, communicated, and applied in new contexts. By examining my experiences and distilling insights into principles, I could not only strengthen my own understanding but also offer guidance to others navigating similar challenges. Education through adversity is amplified when it becomes a collective resource, a way of transforming personal trials into universal learning. Another key aspect is understanding the relationship between failure and education. Adversity often comes with setbacks, mistakes, and moments of apparent failure. Yet these moments are precisely where learning is most potent. By analyzing what went wrong, why it happened, and how it could be addressed differently, I transformed failures into lessons that refined strategy, strengthened resilience, and enhanced emotional intelligence. Each setback became a stepping stone, each misstep a classroom for growth. Adversity also highlights the importance of gratitude and perspective. When navigating intense challenges, it is easy to focus solely on difficulty and loss. Yet within these moments are often small victories, acts of kindness, and glimpses of resilience that deserve recognition. By acknowledging these, I learned to maintain a sense of balance and optimism, even in the most trying circumstances. Gratitude, even for minor successes or insights gained, transforms adversity from a purely negative force into a catalyst for reflection and learning. Through this journey, I discovered that adversity strengthens empathy. Experiencing neglect, disappointment, or hardship provides a deeper understanding of others' struggles. This enhanced awareness improves interpersonal relationships, communication, and compassion. Education through adversity is not confined to personal skill building. It also enhances social intelligence, teaching how to relate, support, and guide others through their challenges with wisdom and sensitivity. Ultimately, the most profound lesson I learned is that adversity is a teacher without bias. It does not discriminate based on age, status, or circumstance. It challenges everyone, but the knowledge gained depends on how one chooses to engage with it. By approaching hardship with awareness, reflection, and intentionality, we convert pain into wisdom, obstacles into lessons, and challenges into opportunities for lasting growth. The education derived from adversity is enduring, deeply personal, and universally applicable. In the end, transforming adversity into education is about mindset. It is about choosing to see each challenge as a lesson rather than a burden, each difficulty as an opportunity rather than a punishment. It is about actively extracting meaning from hardship, applying insights gained, and using them to strengthen resilience, judgment, and emotional intelligence. Life will always present obstacles, but through this process, we learn not only to survive, but to thrive, to grow, and to become more capable, compassionate, and self-aware individuals. By embracing adversity as an educator, I transformed moments of crisis into profound personal development. I learned to navigate complexity, manage emotions, build resilience, cultivate empathy, and develop practical problem-solving skills. Each experience became a chapter in a larger narrative of growth, a living curriculum that continues to shape decisions, relationships, and perspectives. The lessons of adversity are permanent. The strength gained endures. In conclusion, adversity is not merely something to endure. It is something to engage with, learn from, and apply. Every challenge carries a hidden curriculum. Every trial offers insight, and every moment of difficulty presents a chance to expand understanding and capacity. By transforming adversity into education, we equip ourselves not just to survive life's hardships, but to emerge wiser, stronger, and more capable of navigating the complexities of the human experience with confidence, resilience, and integrity. There are moments in life that arrive unannounced, moments that challenge every belief, every assumption we hold about the people around us, and even about ourselves. One such moment came unexpectedly, a day that began like any other, filled with routine errands and ordinary conversations, but ended with an urgent call that changed everything. A loved one had taken a turn for the worse. The words "critical condition" echoed through the phone like thunder, making my heart pound and my thoughts scatter in every direction. It was a moment when time seemed both unbearably slow and terrifyingly fast, compressing every decision, every thought, and every feeling into a relentless race against the clock. In the chaos of rushing to the hospital, arranging transportation, and coordinating with medical staff, I began to notice something profound. In times of crisis, the people who truly matter reveal themselves not through words, but through action. There were those I had always considered close, friends, acquaintances, even family members, whose absence was glaring, almost jarring, in the stark light of emergency. No calls, no messages, no offers of support. It was a reminder that in the routines of daily life, relationships can feel sturdy, even unwavering, yet they may be fragile when the true test comes. Observing this absence was painful, but it was also clarifying. Life has a way of forcing us to confront truths we often avoid, that not everyone who claims to care will act when it matters most, and that love without action is often little more than a comforting illusion. This realization brought both pain and empowerment. Pain because it meant confronting the reality that some people would not rise to the occasion, regardless of history or comfort. Empowerment because it reminded me that the responsibility to act does not belong to others. It belongs to me, to anyone willing to step forward with compassion and courage. There is clarity in moments like these. They strip away distractions, excuses, and illusions, revealing who truly prioritizes family and who does not. In these moments, ordinary gestures of care transform into acts of courage, and the bonds of kinship are tested in ways that reveal their true depth. I discovered that prioritizing family requires more than presence. It demands balance between emotional involvement and strategic action. Panic and despair are natural responses when someone we love is in danger, but to genuinely help, one must cultivate clarity amidst chaos, focusing on what can be done rather than what cannot. Emotional presence is vital, but effective action often saves more than worry alone. In this balance between heart and strategy lies the essence of prioritizing family, the ability to act decisively, compassionately, and intelligently when it matters most. Beyond emotional challenges, life also tests us through unexpected demands and pressures. During this period of crisis, a financial request arrived, a significant sum imposed in a way that felt out of alignment with the reality of the situation. It was in this moment that I learned one of life's most important lessons: the need to establish financial boundaries and protect one's self-respect. Money is rarely neutral. It carries expectations, subtle power dynamics, and emotional weight. Responding wisely requires clarity, calmness, and courage to assert one's principles. I realized that self-respect and financial prudence are inseparable. Protecting one's resources is not selfish. It is an act of maintaining personal integrity, dignity, and agency. Failing to enforce boundaries can have consequences far beyond the immediate financial impact. It can erode confidence, blur principles, and send a message that one's values are negotiable under pressure. By reflecting, evaluating, and responding thoughtfully, I reclaimed control over a situation that could have felt overwhelming, transforming what initially seemed like a challenge into a profound lesson in personal empowerment. Financial boundaries are more than practical. They are educational. They teach the difference between obligation and choice, between coerced generosity and intentional support. True generosity is never forced. It is offered freely, deliberately, and sustainably. Communicating boundaries clearly and respectfully ensures that support is meaningful and relationships remain healthy. In asserting these limits, I discovered the deep link between agency, self-respect, and emotional resilience. Every thoughtful decision reinforced my confidence and underscored a universal truth: money, like time and energy, is a reflection of values, and protecting it wisely is an act of integrity. The journey through neglect and financial pressure also taught me the critical lesson of resilience. When those we expect to support us are absent, we are forced to discover the strength within ourselves. Resilience does not emerge from comfort or convenience. It is cultivated in the crucible of adversity. It begins with acceptance, acknowledging reality without allowing it to define our response. Acceptance creates clarity, and clarity allows one to act deliberately, decisively, and effectively. I discovered that self-reliance is not only a practical necessity, but also an empowering choice. When external help is absent, the responsibility for action rests entirely on our shoulders. This realization, though daunting, reveals a hidden reservoir of strength, ingenuity, and endurance. Emotional regulation becomes essential, acknowledging fear and sadness while choosing to act with clarity and purpose. Resilience is not passive endurance, it is active engagement. It is the ability to assess, adapt, and act effectively, even when circumstances feel overwhelming. Through the challenges, I learned the importance of perspective. Neglect can feel like failure, betrayal, or injustice, but it is also a lens through which we can learn about priorities, boundaries, and the human condition. It teaches discernment, patience, and perseverance. Each decision, each action, and each small victory reinforces inner strength. Reflection allows us to integrate lessons, making adversity a living classroom where growth and learning occur naturally. The final transformative lesson of this journey is perhaps the most powerful: the ability to transform adversity into education. Every challenge, every moment of neglect, every financial or emotional demand carries lessons that, if recognized, can shape character, judgment, and wisdom. Adversity teaches observation, reflection, perspective, resilience, discernment, emotional intelligence, and adaptability. By engaging with challenges thoughtfully, we convert pain into insight, obstacles into strategy, and hardship into lasting knowledge. I learned to see crises not as punishment but as opportunity. Each difficult,